Hello, everyone. Welcome to It Matters Radio. This is Monica Brinkman, if it's the first time you've been here. And joining me, as always, is Mr. Kenneth Ween.
Hi, folks.
Ken. And today you might see a wonderful woman sitting with us. And I wanted to introduce everyone to Joyce Moore. One of the reasons is that Joyce is also, and I'm going to call you Joyce, I think, from that one, but she is a poet. She does prose. She writes books. But what's very important about these writings is they have a meaning and a purpose. And a lot of that is opening our eyes. And she does it in such ways that it's pleasant reading, but it's also important reading. And hi, Joyce, how are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
Oh, I'm so excited you're back. I mean, it's been a long time. The last time Joyce was on our show, I think we were on Blog Talk Radio. That was like 10 years ago or something, or 8 years ago. But you had written Ships. And
Yes.
This is something that I recommend people to read. And one of the reasons I say that is, well, let me give you just a little bit of an example. Now, this is from Ships. And Joyce, or Ken, if you want to, break in and make comments about what I'm reading.
Okay.
She says, now I get what's bugging me. If we are individuals, don't put down the remote and the joysticks for a few minutes and pay attention to what's really going on around us, then we shouldn't be surprised at the outcome when it's too late to do anything about it. If you are willing to consider the notion that I might be right, do this. And I'm going to real fast go through these. When you are being covertly or overtly defined by others, and you're asked to do things about which you have no clear view, ask yourself what could be gained by others if you believe something about yourself in this situation. Now, number 2 is when you're listening or reading the debates between opposing entities, whether you side with one or the other. Think not only whether something makes sense, objectively consider whether it is possible or true. Now, I'm going to just stop there and we'll get back to the other things that you had written right there. But I think that is probably one of the most important things that people could understand, Joyce. How can anyone make a decision unless they listen to both sides? And how can they even voice an opinion unless they know where someone else stands and what the effects will be from who they support?
Well, I actually think that many people, especially today, they decide in their heads what they choose to believe, and then they find whatever they choose to believe in something someone else says, and then decides that's the truth, when everything you believe isn't always the truth. It might be your truth, but it isn't the truth. And unless we start looking at facts instead of looking at what we choose to believe, things are not going to change. There's a lot of justification, I'll put it that way, to believing what becomes propaganda. And that is where a lot of the problem lies in this country today. There are conduits of propaganda. We all know which ones they are. They don't base their beliefs on fact. They base it on opinion. And because the opinion looks like what you choose to believe, you choose to believe it.
And what was interesting to me, this was back in 2011 that you saw this comment, and you tried to get the word out to people as much as possible. And look what we have today, a big choice to make.
A big choice to make.
I wanted to ask you, being we're talking about, the vote and everything right now, what would you say to the Black population about deciding who to vote for? Not, I mean, I'm not saying one's better than the other right now, but what would you say? Because I see it. I'm a Black citizen. All I have seen before Obama and now after him is white males leading the country. And
What would I what would I say to that? Here's what I say. First of all, people need to understand if you're an African American, or if you're not an African American, there is a psychology called splitting manipulation. It's been used in politics forever. If they can't get you to choose what they want you to choose, then what the next step, the next strategy is to divide and to split. So that it's done innocuously, it's done covertly, but it still works. I'll give you a strong example. When Zimmerman was tried for and found they found they didn't convict him. He was guilty, but they didn't convict him. The expectation before that was announced was that African Americans were going to go riot everywhere. So everybody, all these large cities lined up, getting police ready, getting tanks and such ready. So when it did not happen, when instead they, instead of rioting, we decided to talk. We decided to have conversation. We decided to strategize. Black Twitter was born. That was more, people became more fearful of that than of actual riots because the expectation was violence. The outcome was strategy. That is the biggest fear in this country, is that African Americans actually unite and strategize and execute a strategy. So what happened for 2 days there, I watched online as Black Twitters, people started talking. It began to resonate, it began to get stronger. It even made the national news because they go like, what is this Black Twitter? What are they doing? Well, that harkens back to historically when it used to be that more than 3 people that were people of color could not stand on the street and talk, could not stand in the corporations and have conversations. I've had more than one conversation with people that have worked for corporations where they happened to be standing in the hallway talking to each other and got written up for doing that.
wow, how is that even legal?
It didn't matter legal, it was corporate. You couldn't stand it. And I've even had an African American boss at one time who called me into the office, shut the door and said, this is what we're not going to do. Because he was Black, but he didn't want to appear to be Black. So you could not, he said, we're not going to go to lunch. We're never going to do this. We're never going to do that. And I was stunned by that.
I am too. I've never had anyone say anything like that to me, ever.
If I can intrude for a second here, the United States is still living with fear of Nat Turner.
Yeah.
You
You're
know, Ken,
exactly
I think
right.
you hit it on the head right there when you said it.
Yeah.
Now, Joyce, I wanted to talk about the one book that you wrote for children. And could you let everybody know the name and what it's about?
Oh, you're talking about I Like Brown?
I Like Brown, yes.
I wrote I Like Brown because of my niece at the time. was a 4 years old, I believe, and she was in preschool. And she went to the international school. She went into the international school where you learn how to speak languages, at the same time. And she was in preschool. And I just remember how her experiences were going to a school that was where very few African Americans were, or people of color of any kind. And I think that for a while she was the only one in their class, that kind of thing. And,
Right.
children learn racism or racial differences from growing up on, from the time they're born. I think racism is more of a legacy. Donald Trump himself, uh, his father was a KKK person.
Yes.
Uh, so you understand that, I understand the fact that he is what he is because of legacy in part.
Yes.
So I wrote a book called I Like Brown to talk about, to help kids walk through the idea of the color is brown. It has nothing to do with the person. There are plenty of brown things in this world that we can like. So if you like all those brown things, like from chocolate ice cream on, then you can like people because it's just a color.
The earth is brown. I mean,
Yeah,
it's,
that's one of the things to say in there. The brown, the trees are brown, everything's brown. And I shared it with a teacher who thought, she said, this is an awesome way to teach kids about race. And so, and I also thought, because in my past life in corporate, one of the things that I did was uh, facilitate uh, diversity courses, which was an interesting journey when you do that with people who are used to believing that they are the only people in the universe. So, but it's as good for adults as it is for children. But it carries you through a whole path to get to the notion that, maybe that's true. Maybe that's right. Maybe I should learn how to stop differentiating one from the other. And the term colorblind should never be, I'm sorry that word is even around in the context of using it for people of color, because no one wants, I've even written a poem or two about that. Colorblindness doesn't mean anything. It just simply erases people and renders them invisible. So colorblind doesn't mean anything. So people should also stop using that and stop believing in that concept.
yeah, that
But
makes,
anyway, that's what the book is about. It's really about race.
I would like to see that book in schools for children to read.
That's what I'd love to be in a position to put it in every school, to have it published and given to kids everywhere, and given to not just kids, given it to police.
Yes.
Put it in the police department and to have them read it and go through some thoughts and conversation about it, because it's an important way to understand that people of color, whether you're brown, dark brown, light brown, pale brown, whatever you are, it's a culture.
Yeah.
It's a culture that you love to use, but then you want to abuse.
Unfortunately, yeah. You have always wanted to bring art into children's lives and even adults' lives. And I know that you've worked on many projects to do that.
Right.
What do you think it would be a good idea for people to join together and support this? Because what I have found, and Ken, I know you've seen this change through the years, any program that is beneficial, it seems they do away with in schools, and you're left with just the technology and math and science. But when it comes to interaction with people, we used to have classes that taught this. It was called humanities or it was called social classes, but they seem to be taking all that away, so that this communication is not there anymore in the schools between the people, so that they can learn about each other.
Art is a, I am a, as you know, I am several things. I not only create art, I am an art advocate, and I am a freelance curator. For several years, I've done exhibitions, art shows, do Harlem Renaissance right here in Indianapolis. I did that back then. I think it was 2002 or something like that. And I'm going back on the and trying to get back on the horse of art, because there is an actual show. There's the actual several projects I'm working on right now in that area.
And Ken, as a therapist of sorts here, because you are a psychologist, do you see art being a healing form?
I see art as being it can't be used for that.
Poetry, drawings.
It can be used for that. Art therapy is a wonderful modality. But, I'm just sitting here and I'm thinking about things that you've said. And I think one of the things that, I really wanted to get into is the word propaganda, which came up earlier.
Yes.
And you went to art. And, I think art is a wonderful method of propaganda. So let's talk about, I think the problem that I'm having, and I think in a way, maybe Joyce, you're having it too, is this whole idea that there are facts and truths, rather than recognizing that there aren't. And that the role of the artist in healing, if you will, is that we as artists, and I consider myself as an author to be an artist, and of course I'm married to a painter.
Yes.
Is that as artists, our goal is to show that which is not reconciled, to show that which creates ambivalence, creates discomfort in ways that people can explore. And I think the problem that has gone on, one of the big problems that has gone on in schools, for example, is not that the programs have disappeared, but that the willingness to explore ambiguity and difference and issues has disappeared. So you no longer can use art or education or anything else to talk about meaningful issues. And I think in a sense, one of my concerns about being a host on It Matters Radio is that we produce propaganda. And, the three of us sitting here right now, for example, have said, or I didn't say it, but I certainly went along with it, that we should not try and be colorblind. We should celebrate difference. We should recognize skin color as a fact and not try and make it disappear in our minds, but rather to recognize that beauty comes in all shades. And I couldn't agree more with that.
Well,
but that's a political position.
I have to disagree. I think there's a huge difference between propaganda, which is absolute false creations.
That's your spin on the word. The word propaganda does not necessarily mean falsity. For example,
No,
during,
it doesn't have to be false, but what I'm
yeah,
saying is when we speak on the show and we talk to people, we ask them to seek the truth, look for the documents, look for this. We're
yes,
asking people to use their own mind. Now, if you feel that's propaganda, I certainly don't.
well, I think that's what we started talking about, and you went by it. But yes, what we really want, and I think this is what I'm hearing you say, Joyce, is that you want people to explore,
Mhm.
to consider, and that wonderful position piece that Monica read the beginning of. That what you're really saying is, people, you're going to hear all these sides, you're going to hear all these ideas, and it is up to you as a consumer of ideas. And by you, I'm talking about every human being.
Well, Ken, I'm going to read
And
another bit of this because it kind of hits on what you're talking about. And this is from Ships. Pay attention to evidence. Don't ignore what you see just because you've already made up your mind, especially when you believe your view is the right view. Irrefutable facts are hard to deny, even when they make you uncomfortable. Now, she goes on to say, when you feel conflicted or uncomfortable about a choice you've made, ask yourself, is it because someone else has created that conflict for you? Is that what always happens when you aren't compliant? Then the likelihood is that the problem isn't you. It's the person or persons defining you on their terms. And lastly, perhaps it would be best if we all stop looking for a label to define us. If we inherently know what we need, we know what we need to do to get what we need. We have got to stop asking for permission and have the courage to stand up for the truth. As long as we continue to sit on the sidelines, waiting for direction, there will always be someone who will intentionally show us the wrong path.
now, Monica, I'm going to ask you if you can tell our listeners where they can find this document.
Yeah, now this is from Ships. This was a book written back in 2011, and I encourage everyone to read this. You can see just from that little excerpt of it that Joyce just tells it from like it is, and she is not taking sides. What she is doing is asking you to think, to discover, to search for truth, and then make a decision. And don't let other people define who you are. And Joyce, what's your website so everyone knows, so they can take a look and for these wonderful your poetry and your prose and your writings?
You can go to actually on Facebook. I have a page.
Okay.
It's called Facebook. Let me think what it was. It's my words, my voice.
My words, my voice.
Yes. If you search my words, my voice on Facebook, you'll find Joyce Moore on there. I do have another website. It's morehamenterprises.yolasite.com.
Uh-huh.
And on there, I'm going to read to you what I say about art.
All right.
It says, art is not just about art. Visual, musical, performing, and literary art has long been our method of recording history, conveying thought, and evoking change in paradigms. And yes, sometimes it's simply our method of conveying creativity and beauty. Art is a conduit, a common meeting ground upon which social change and growth can be planted and nurtured. The arts have been substantial and proven to have a direct effect upon the ability of a child to better develop his or her skills in other educational disciplines from mathematics to psychology. Because we are a proponent of social entrepreneurship, we will continue to develop opportunities on the national level that support artists, for-profit and nonprofit organizations in meeting their creative objectives. That is uh, something I wrote some time ago. To I used to for a while. I had a nonprofit called Alliance of African American Artists, which I'm ultimately and slowly going to resurrect. I had to step away from it because it's really time consuming.
Yes.
Because of the fact that I had other personal deal things to deal uh, with family, and slowly but surely getting back around to creating art, like what you spoke of earlier about art being a way to express change or need for change. I create what's called expresses, which is where you combine art and the written word. So I use those to convey. They make very powerful pieces when you do it that way. And I'm going to post some of those on Facebook today so that you can see what I'm talking about.
Yep.
Because I did it specifically about Black Lives Matter, the series that I did. I have about 5 to 7 pieces in that area.
All right. I encourage everybody to check out your Facebook page. And I,
Monica,
yes.
could we make sure we have a link to
Oh, yeah.
those, please, on the description of the show, so people don't have to go looking around?
Absolutely. We will put the links at the bottom of the podcast in the information so everyone can easily get to them. And um, are there any other organizations that you're trying to get to, come in and join you on this mission? Or I just think it would be so powerful if people from around the country would start having programs such as this and information for not just young people, but all people.
I am currently in a variety of organizations, but there are several, frankly, there are several of them on Facebook. But as far as like the national organizations right now, I'm not in a lot of those. I am trying to focus on, well, I will tell you, there is a group called uh, Art for, I'll send you the links, but they're on Facebook and they are artists for uh, change. I think that's what it's called, Art for
Okay.
Change on Facebook. But I'll send you the actual name and that information so that you could share it with others.
Ken, do you see this as a way to assist in healing?
I do. I think that first of all, what resonates with one person may not resonate with another. So if you use art and combine it with words and combine it with the spoken word, because they're all different genres of art, that I think that it gives us an opportunity to speak the language that someone's willing to hear, uh, and that resonates with them. Some of the books that and writings that I have going on lately, like I have a book called that is I'm working on called Five, and it's called Five because I create the current art poetic form I love right now is called cinquains, where you have 5 lines uh, of poetic verse that goes in a certain rhythm of 2, 4, 6, 8, too. And it's like, to me, it's like the Twitter of poetry. And it's one way that you can speak to people concisely and clearly, because you only have so many syllables to use. To me, it's a powerful and effective way to talk. And I've combined those with some graphic art, because graphic art is my big thing right now.
Okay.
I paint too, but graphic art is my big thing right now.
And I know Ken loves that.
Yeah, I love the idea of using multiple art forms. You use the word healing. I'm going to use a different word.
Okay.
I'm going to say dialogue. I don't think that you have healing until after you have dialogue. I'm a great believer that in this country, perhaps more than any country in history, there is a need right now for truth and reconciliation. That whole process. We have watched in other countries like South Africa, where and Germany, post-Nazi Germany, where at least people came to grips. I think we are in the come to grips part.
Yes.
I think we have to have the discussion. I'm not looking for them always to be civil. I think sometimes we're going to be yelling at each other. I am not looking for all the art to be, I don't want all the art to be Rubenesque or something. I don't want all these lovely Constable scenes. I want art that makes us think about what we are doing, what we have done. I want it whether it's poetry or graphic arts or painting or sculpting or novels, whatever form it is. The thing is that really strikes me is that one of the things that Joyce may consciously or unconsciously bring to the table is her love, because she loves form. For example, the cinquain, phrastic poetry, things like that. What she's telling us and reminding us is, and I really appreciate you reminding us of it, Joyce, is that the arts, by bringing the discipline of the art itself, helps us to frame the discussion and to make sense.
Okay, yeah.
We're not just throwing paint on the wall, folks. We're not just twirling curse words. We're not just, tweeting in a storm. That the artists are people who are trying to actually focus us so that we think about the conflicts and problems. And Joyce, I think your work does that, which is one of the reasons I like it.
Excellent. I think that if you could use your art to make people think, then I think you're doing a great thing. If you're not using your talents to create dialogue, create discussion, and I have found in my observation of people in general that if, the moment people start throwing around names or trying to call you names or call you out of your name, that usually indicates A, they have become fearful, and B, they have nothing to bring to the table. They don't want to discuss. They want to stop you from talking.
Ken, I have heard you say that so many times. Did you actually read this before you commented? And I think that happens so many times. People, they read a opinion of someone's and right away attack instead of even going and looking at what they're talking about.
Yeah, on Facebook, I very often find myself saying, "Did you bother to read this?" And the other thing I often say is, "I know you believe this." because,
Yeah.
I know they're not open to discuss. And I think that's what we're talking about, opening a world to discussion, to debate.
Yes.
And, I'm old enough to remember when Stephen Douglas and Abe Lincoln were standing up there on the stage back in Freeport, Illinois, and debating. No, but debate used to be something meaningful.
Mm-hmm.
It used to really open up questions and what really do we need. I think now debate no longer does that. I do think art does that.
Yes.
Poetry can do it. I think prose can do it. And as a writer, that's what my goal is. Monica, I know you. Monica, I just had the pleasure the other day. I edited a small newsletter for a group that believes in the right to die. And Monica had written a lovely piece, and I just got to see it in the newsletter. We went to press.
Oh,
Yes.
how exciting.
And I'm hoping, Monica, that, we have this thing during the week where we have extra videos, and I was going to hope that Monica might and I'll do a thing where she reads that to me so that then we can share it with all of you folks here on It Matters Radio.
Sounds good. And we'll get something up for Joyce also.
Yeah, and Joyce, I'd love it if you would send us a video that we can add during the week, because and now comes my ad, beep beep beep, ad. Folks, that's a good reason to follow It Matters Radio on YouTube, because then you get notified when these things are put up there, all these special things we do.
And Ken, what people don't realize is we do this so that people can hear different opinions, do research, meet new people such as Joyce Moore, who has actually dedicated her life for truth and helping others. And what else could you ask for, So please check out Joyce's Facebook page. We're going to have it underneath here. And tell others about her works, and please tell them about our show so that our guests can have a voice. And that's what we're all here for, to share our voices. Joyce, gosh, we've run out of time, but I'm sure that we'll be meeting again, and
love to come back again.
Absolutely, because you're one of the people that has used their talent for so much good, and I love it.
I thank you.
Monica, one of the things Joyce saying she'd like to come back again reminds me, what we really need to do is start figuring out how we can keep adding so many wonderful new voices and still have all the old voices come back. And I don't know whether we're going to have to do more shows or have more people on a show.
I know.
Wait, one of the wonderful things for me about It Matters Radio, one of the reasons I keep doing it, is that we do keep finding and interacting with wonderful people like Joyce Moore. And, even when we're sitting here talking today, it's fascinating. I'd love, for example, and some of these people that I'd love to have on together are just so disparate. For example, we have coming up soon, folks, an interview with one of our favorite sex educators, Alvin Accio, who's been on before. Now, we were talking about education before. Mm-hmm. Using it to talk about disagreement and things. What topic more powerful than sex? And what topic more intersects with art than sexuality and sensuality? And yet, so maybe what we need to start doing is just randomly get all the names of all our guests, put them in a big jar, pull out 2 names.
That would be interesting.
You could handle it, Joyce. I know you could, whoever we picked.
If we had her on with Al, you and I could just go to sleep and let the two of them talk, and it would be a wonderful
I
discussion.
think so. I think so. Well, we've run out of time, and I want to thank you so much again for joining us today. And we're going to have a little trailer for you right now so you can kind of get an idea of what Joyce is all about. And with that, folks, here we go. Bye-bye.
All right.